Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about food storage, and I know that this has been a hot topic. Everyone wants to know, how do you get started in food storage? So we're going to jump right in. First of all, before I do, I'll just tell you a little bit of a story. That when I was growing up, um, I was raised on the idea that food storage is very, very important to future-proof anything that happens. Now, what could happen? Why can't we just go to the shops and just keep buying week to week? Well, a number of things. So I lived in the country, and the shops weren't just around the corner. So you had to only shop once a week and you get everything that you need, and then that's it. Uh, and what can happen? Fire, floods, drought. We do live in Australia. All kinds of things happen. What else? Job loss, theft. All these things can leave you out of pocket, out of convenience. And so what we're trying to do with food storage is make sure what's the number one thing that you need? You need food and water. And if you've got food and water covered, then anything can happen and you're not going to be desperate, right? How long can you go without a meal? And so if something happened, maybe your credit cards are stolen and you have no money and your bank is wiped out. I just read on a news article the other day that a number of a particular bank, their accounts went to zero bank balance. And whilst the bank said, oh yes, we're rectifying that, a lot of the customers were upset because they couldn't get their money and it wasn't rectified right away. Now, if for you, if that happened and then the next day was shopping day and or pay your rent and you didn't have any money in the bank and all you had in your wallet was cards and no cash, how long can you go? Okay, so this is super important. And I know that for a lot of people, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world. So this is a really good time to be looking at food storage. Now, I'm just going to check. I know I have some people watching on live tonight, so I just want to check in. Okay, and I want to make sure that if you have any questions that you type them in, let me know what questions you have. But I'm just going to share my screen with you all. Got a little presentation ready to share. Okay, so hopefully you can be seeing my screen right now. And I like this picture because this is a very organized cupboard of food storage, well, cupboard shelf. And I have begun to do this. So not as organized as this, otherwise I would have taken photos of my own cupboard. But it's lots of fun when you get started. So let's have a think about some of the key things that you need to think about when you're getting started with your food storage. Okay. All right, number one is your space. Where are you going to put it? If you live in a tiny apartment and you barely got enough room for your pantry items, then you might have to get creative. I've seen people create their food storage under their bed, for instance. It's going to be up to each person to figure out how much space do I have for how much I can store. Okay, next thing is storage containers. So your containers are going to be very important because if you're storing things for long term, just your ordinary cardboard boxes are going to be fine to a point. Okay, because it's going to matter what bugs or rodents or things are around your area that could make these things more perishable much more quickly. So glass is a very good storage container, especially for we'll get into the foods that how you store them. But so even the white plastic bins that you can see in the picture, mice can chew through them, so you kind of have to be aware of that. But generally glass and thick plastic that you can see through, because if you're going to be using them, you want to know where you're up to with that. Okay, and then how much do you need to store? Well, that's going to depend on how many people in your family, how many meals that you want to cater for, and what your own particular storage needs are. Okay, also the climate. If you're living in a very cold climate, if you're living in a very hot climate, those two things can make a really big difference to how you store. A lot of humidity is going to create mold, so you have to be aware of those things. And then rotation. So we're going to talk more about this, the rotation, but you want to, once we set up your food storage items, then you want to have a good rotation system so that you're eating from the front. And I'm going to get in and talk about that as well. Planning. Okay, let's talk about how you plan for your food storage, and the more organized that you can be, the better. And then, okay, so step number 1, you're going to write down the foods that you normally eat for meals. So pick 2 weeks and keep a food diary for 2 weeks, either 2 weeks planning ahead or 2 weeks that have just gone by. Have a think about all the foods that you buy or cook with on a regular basis. And then, so you want to break them up into breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because you need to not just cater for one meal a day when we're food storaging. We need to cater for all the meals of the day for the 2 weeks. Okay. So next, we're going to purchase, so make a list of those, and then we're going to purchase a few more items than that you would normally purchase for the 2 weeks. So don't go crazy. Depending on your budget, you just want to add a couple of items to the list when you go shopping, so that you can build upon what you've already got. You're not just replacing what you're using, but you're building upon it. And then look for things that have a discount. If you are able to shop at a Costco, that might be great. You might be able to buy some things in bulk, but not necessarily doesn't mean that it's going to be cheaper than maybe shopping at Aldi. So you got to work it out. Some things at Costco are really good value. Some are not such good value. Some items you can't get at Costco or Aldi or vice versa. So weigh up what is going to be important to you. Okay, and then we talked about this. Step number 3, rotate your stockpile. So FIFO, not fly in, fly out, first in, first out on your shelves. Sometimes if you have a bit more space, there's some really good ways that you can, for cans, that I've seen these can systems that you put your cans in at the top and then they roll down, and then you pull the can out at the bottom, and then that just means that you're always picking from the bottom and you're always using up that first in, first out rotation system. Okay, now also, if you can't do it that way, make sure you have label markers, write dates on, check off those dates. And so I've got a pretty good storage system now that will take me up to, most foods will take me up to definitely January next year, maybe March, some even into June. And so the idea now is that when I go shopping, I'm making sure that I buy things with a use by date that's later than that, used by at the end of next year, and then so rotating those things. So I'm going to have a good year ahead of myself. Okay. So long-term planning, you can start to think about that once you get the shorter term things under your belt. So, if you are, once you start doing your short term, then you'll start to know what foods you're using. And because there's no point storing a whole bunch of foods that you're not eating. And if you get to the end of, the use by date and you haven't got to them, maybe they're just taking up space in your cupboard and maybe you're not going to shop for those foods. Find a way. Sometimes you need to do an audit so that they don't go to waste. Pull everything out of the cupboard, have a look at everything, meal plan around what you actually have first before you go out and start to stockpile stuff that maybe you're not using. Okay. Eventually, what you want to do is get together with other people who are like-minded, who are in your area, where you can have a local community who can swap with you or can do bulk buying, can really make it cost effective. I know some groups that have got together, they've done some cooking in the past where they've made up dinners for the freezer, that kind of thing. And there's some really good co-ops in most areas. If you research into them, you'll find good co-ops in your area. Good, so for veggies, so you can do a fresh co-op. You can, get together with others and do a bulk storage co-op. You don't need to think that you're doing this all on your own. So if you are new to this and you want some help there, if you are on Telegram and you want to join if you're watching this and you're already in my group, that's great. But if you want to go there, Food Storage and Self-Reliance on Telegram, then there is a beautiful group in there who we're connecting and we're doing exactly this. All right, so let's have a quick look at the kinds of foods that most people will have or want and what that can last more than a year. So dried beans, white or brown rice, oats, still cut, very good for you. Canned veggies, canned fruit, canned tuna, chicken, meat, powder milk. I know a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm not really keen on powder milk, but you will, if you were in a situation where that's all you had, you might get into it more than you think. I like long life almond milk, so there's an alternative. Baking ingredients, sugar, butter. Baking powder at soda doesn't last, and yeast doesn't last quite as long. So you have to keep turning those over if they're using them. Flour, salt, pepper, seasonings and spices, dried meat such as beef jerky. So they're a good one to have. I put those in 72-hour kits, and I'll talk about that another day. Pasta, noodles, spaghetti noodles. At Costco, they do one that my family really love, and it actually comes in a noodle kind of a pot, and then it actually has meat in it as well, so it's a favorite. Tomato sauces, peanut butter or jams and jellies, instant potatoes, honey, muesli, stock cubes, coffee and tea, and condiments such as your barbecue sauce, tomato sauce, and your ketchup. So those are some of the things that you can store over a year, and some really good basics there. What's really good about that, and also want to mention washing powder, your laundry items. Have a storage of those things as well, because what you'll find is if you can actually purchase them when they're on special and get a bit of a stockpile of these things, then it's actually really convenient. It's so convenient, especially if you want to, bake and just to be able to go to your own store cupboard and go, right, what do I need? And there it is, and you pull it out, and it's fabulous not to have to run to the shop every 5 minutes. You know, every time we do that, we overspend, we buy things on impulse that we don't really need. And so to be able to have that storage in your house, if you can manage it, then that's going to set you up. You're actually going to save money over the long term because you're not shopping necessarily weekly. You know, we might do a weekly veg shop, but we're actually starting to grow a lot of our veggies now. So you know, you invest in yourself and it will pay you back for the long term. So that's all I want to share with you tonight. Please do let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much for watching. And if you're in my group, I'm going to keep posting some more and more information so that you can start to get your food storage organized. It's so important these days. And happy storaging, happy shopping. All right, stay well, be well. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye for now. Oh, I got to